Primary source reader by Dr. Joshua Fan, number 18, Women in the Ancient World, Confucian China. Introduction. Our second example about women in the ancient world came from Han China, where Confucianism had become the dominant ideology. Ben Zhao, 45 to 116 CE, is the younger sister of the court historian Bang Gu. Upon Gu's death, Zhao completed her brother's Han Shu, a history of the former Han dynasty, which is generally regarded as second to the historical work of Sima Qian. Ban Zhao also served as an advisor on state matters to Empress Deng, who assumed power as regent for her infant son in 106 CE. However, Bao Zhao's most famous work was Lesson for Women, which perpetrated to be an instructional manual for her daughters, but in fact she intended it for a much wider audience. Questions for response paper. According to Ban Zhao, what were nature, characteristics, and duties of women? Number 2, what sort of education did Ban Zhao educate for women, and what was its purpose? Why are we able to infer that her daughters also received, at last, a rudimentary education in Confucian literature? Number 3, what are some of the signs that Confucian teachings were well established by this time? What was the proper relationship between husband and wife? Number 4, do you take what Ban wrote at face value? How did she describe herself? Who were her targeted audiences? What was her real goal in writing Lesson for Women? Primary text selections from Ban Zhao's Lesson for Women. I, the unworthy writer, am unsophisticated, unenlightened, and by nature unintelligent. But I am fortunate both to have received not a little favor from my scholarly father, and to have had a cultured mother, and instructresses upon whom to rely for a literary education, as well as for training in good manners. More than 40 years have passed since at the age of 14, I took up the dustpan and broom in the Chow family. During this time, with trembling heart, I feared constantly that I might disgrace my parents, and that I might multiply difficulties for both the women and the men of my husband's family. Day and night I was distressed in heart, but I labored without confessing weariness. Now and hereafter, however, I know how to escape from such fears. Being careless and by my nature stupid, I taught and trained my children without system. Consequently, I feared that my son Gu may bring disgrace upon the imperial dynasty, by whose holy grace has unprecedentedly received the extraordinary privilege of wearing the gold and the purple, a privilege for attainment by which by my son, I, a humble subject, never even hoped. Nevertheless, now that he is a man and able to plan his own life, I need not again have concern for him. But I do grieve that you, my daughters, just now at the age for marriage, have not at this time had gradual training and advice, that you still have not learned the proper customs for married women. I fear that by failure in good manners in other families, you will humiliate both your ancestors and your clan. I am now seriously ill. Life is uncertain, as I have thought of you all in so untrained a state. I have been uneasy many times for you. At hours of leisure, I have composed these instructions under the title Lessons for Women. Humility. On the 3rd day after the birth of a girl, the ancients observed 3 customs. First, to place the baby below the bed. Second, to give her potsherd with which to play, and third, to announce her birth to her ancestors by an offering. Now to lay the baby below the bed plainly indicated that she is lowly and weak, and should regard it as her primary duty to humble herself before others. To give her potsherds with which to play undoubtedly signified that she should practice labor and consider it her primary duty to be industrious. To announce her birth before her ancestors clearly meant that she ought to esteem as her primary duty and continuation of the observance of worship in the home. These three ancient customs epitomize women's ordinary way of life and the teachings of the traditional ceremonial rites and regulations. Let a woman modestly yield to others. Let her respect others. Let her put others first, herself last. Should she do something good, let her not mention it. Should she do something bad, let her not deny it. Let her bear disgrace. Let her even endure when others speak or do evil to her. Always let her seem to tremble and to fear. When a woman follows such maxims as these, then she may be said to humble herself before others. Let a woman retire late to bed, but rise early to duties. Let her not dread tasks day by day or by night. Let her not refuse to perform domestic duties, whether easy or difficult. That which must be done, let her finish completely, tidily, and systematically. When a woman follows such rules as these, then she may be said to be industrious. Let a woman be correct in a manner and upright in character in order to serve her husband. Let her live in purity and quietness of spirit and attend to her own affairs. Let her love not gossip and silly laughter. Let her cleanse and purify and arrange in order the wine and the food for the offerings to the ancestors. When a woman observes such principles as these, then she may be said to continue ancestral worship. No woman who observes these three fundamentals of life has ever had a bad reputation or has fallen into disgrace. If a woman fail to observe them, how can her name be honored? How can she but bring disgrace upon herself? Husband and wife. The way of husband and wife is intimately connected with yin and yang and relates the individual to gods and ancestors. Truly, it is the great principle of heaven and earth and the great basis of human relationships. For these reasons, the relationships cannot be an important one. If a husband be unworthy, then he possesses nothing by which to control his wife. If a wife be unworthy, then she possesses nothing with which to serve her husband. If a husband does not control his wife, then the rules of conduct manifesting his authority are abandoned and broken. If a wife does not serve her husband, when the proper relationship between men and women and the natural order of things are neglected and destroyed. As a matter of fact, the purpose of these two, the controlling of women and by men and the serving of men by women, is the same. Now examine the gentlemen of the present age. They only know that wives must be controlled and that husbands' rules of conduct manifesting his authority must be established. They therefore teach their boys to read books and study histories, but they do not in the least understand that husbands and masters must also be served, and that the proper relationship and the rights should be maintained, yet only to teach men and not to teach women. Is that not ignoring the essential relation between them? According to the rights, it is the rule to begin to teach children to read at the age of 8 years, and by the age of 15 years, they ought then to be ready for cultural training. Only why should it not be that girls' education, as well as boys, be according to this principle? Respect and caution. As yin and yang are not of the same nature, so men and women have different characteristics. The distinctive quality of the yang is rigidity. The function of the yin is yielding. Man is honored for strength. A woman is beautiful on account of her gentleness. Hence there arose the common saying, a man though born like a wolf may, it is feared become a weak monstrosity. A woman though born like a mouse may, it is feared become a tiger. Now for self-culture. Nothing equals respect for others. To counteract firmness, nothing equals compliance. Consequently, it can be said that the way of respect and acquiescence is women's most important principle. I'm so sorry. Of conduct. Those who are steadfast in devotion know that they should stay in their proper places. Those who are liberal and generous esteem others and honor and serve them. The correct relationship between husband and wife is based upon harmony and intimacy, and conjugal love is grounded in proper union. Should actual blows be dealt, how could matrimonial relationship be preserved? Should sharp words be spoken, how could conjugal love exist? If love and proper relationship both be destroyed, then husband and wife are divided. Womanly qualifications. A woman ought to have 4 qualifications. 1, woman in virtue, womanly words, womanly bearing, womanly work. Now, what is called womanly virtue need not be brilliant ability, exceptionally different from others. Womanly words need be neither clever in debate nor keen in conversation. Womanly appearance requires neither a pretty nor a pretty face and form. Womanly work need not be work done more skillfully than of others. To guard carefully her chastity, to control circumspectly her behavior, in every motion to exhibit modesty, and to model each act on the best usage. This is womanly virtue. To choose her words with care, to avoid vulgar language, to speak at appropriate times, and not to weary others with much conversation, may be called the characteristics of womanly words. To wash and scrub filth away, to keep clothes and ornaments fresh and clean, to wash the head and bathe the body regularly, and to keep the person free from disgraceful filth may be called the characteristics of womanly bearing. With wholehearted devotion to sew and to weave, to love not to gossip, and silly laughter in cleanliness and order to prepare with the wine and food for serving guests, may be called the characteristics of womanly work. These 4 qualifications characterize the greatest virtue of a woman. No woman can afford to be without them. In fact, they are very easy to possess if a woman only treasure them in her heart. The ancients had a saying, is love afar off? If I desire love, then love is at hand. So can it be said of these qualifications. Wholehearted devotion. Now in the rites is written the principle that a husband may marry again, but there is no canon that authorizes a woman to be married the second time. Therefore it is said of husbands as of heaven, that is certainly as people cannot run away from heaven. So surely a wife cannot leave a husband's home. If people in action or character disobey the spirits of heaven and earth, then heaven punishes them. Likewise, if a woman errs in the rites in the proper mode of conduct, then her husband esteems her lightly. The ancient book, A Pattern for Women, says to obtain the love of one man is the crown of a woman's life. To lose the love of one man is to miss the aim in a woman's life. For these reasons, women cannot but seek to win her husband's heart. Nevertheless, the beseeching wife need not use flattery, coaxing words, and cheap methods to gain intimacy. Implicit obedience. Whenever the mother-in-law says, "Don't do that," do not do that, and if what she says is right, unquestionably the daughter-in-law obeys. Whenever the mother-in-law says, "Do that," even if what she says is wrong, still the daughter-in-law submits unfailingly to the command. Let a woman not act contrary to the wishes and the opinions of parents-in-law about right and wrong. Let her not dispute with them what is straight and what is crooked. Such docility may call obedience which sacrifices personal opinion. Therefore, the ancient book, A Pattern for Women, says, if a daughter-in-law who follows the wishes of her parents-in-law is like and echo and shadow, how could she not be praised? Harmony with younger brothers and sisters-in-law. In order for a wife to gain the love of her husband, she must win for herself the love of her parents-in-law. To win for herself the love of her parents-in-law, she must secure herself the goodwill of younger brothers and sisters-in-law. For these reasons, the right and wrong, the praise and the blame of a woman alike depend upon younger brothers and sisters-in-law. Consequently, it will not do for a woman to lose their affection. Modesty is virtue's handle. Acquiescent is the wife's most refined characteristics. All who possesses these two have sufficient harmony with others. In the book of poetry, it is written that here is no evil, there is no dart. So it may be said of these two, modesty and acquiescence. This is the end of number 18 on primary source.